What's going on, everybody? GemMint here, and welcome to the new Comic Book Day Reviews. It's Wednesday, March 2nd, so as always, gonna go through these books as spoiler-free as possible. I read 25 books this week, a lot physical, a lot digital. We're gonna get into all that, but I want to remind you, I will be live later today on Whatnot for Whatnot Wednesday. I kick it off at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. I've got a lot of great Whatnot exclusive variants. Those Tyler Kirkham Invincible, Omni-Man, and Invisible variants. Plus a lot of great street level hero stuff. It's a 1-hour show. We got $1 starting bids and 30-second auctions. Also, I want to thank Dynamite Entertainment for sponsoring this video. Make sure to check out their new releases this week, which include Sheena, Queen of the Jungle 4, Dynamite Never Dies 1, and Hell Sonia Issue 3. And speaking of Hell Sonia, since I am reading this, let's start it off with this book. Guys, don't sleep on Hell Sonia. Whether you're picking this up for the Lucio Perillo covers or the huge explosive artwork on the inside, big, grandiose heaven and hell story with multiverse aspects with these different Hell Sonias, the blue Sonia, the red Sonia, the gold. It's got a lot going on for it. It's a big epic Spawn-like storytelling, which I really enjoy. So make sure to pick up Hell Sonia. Moving on over to Image Comics, we have Nita Hall's Nightmare Blog, issue 5, and it's hard to imagine that this is only issue 5. It feels like it's been going on for much longer than that, but we're reaching this climax. It's dark and gritty, but it's becoming more and more crazy with the demon possession and tentacles and all this crazy stuff. Nita essentially in a meeting with the devil, not fazed whatsoever. I like those big story, like I said, heaven and hell stuff, like Hell Sonia, Nightmare Blog is right up there with it. Sticking with Image, we have Rogue Sun, issue number 1 by Chris Parrott, I believe, Abel, D. Malarian, Carrie, and that's it. This really just feels like what Dennis Hallam did with Power Rangers. What Kyle Higgins did with Power Rangers and then went over to do Radiant Black. This kind of feels like Chris Parrott, same thing, like he's good at writing Power Rangers, so now he's going to create his own property, which is kind of Power Ranger Radiant Black-esque. I couldn't really get into it. It was kind of an oversized story. A lot of information thrown at you, a lot of characters. Wasn't really into it. Moving on over to Newborn. This is issue 4 by Chip Zdarsky and Phillips. This one was okay as well. This plays with the idea that there's this guy that works for the mob. He works for all the families. He's neutral. He solves crimes and killings that weren't sanctioned. Well, basically now the cops want him to work for them as well, having him work for all three parties. They're not really giving him a choice, and it's obviously not a good look. So it gets him into some stuff, and it makes him rely on his newfound partner a little bit more than I think either of them would have liked, which makes it an interesting story. It's not like the Chip Zdarsky you think about when you think of Chip Zdarsky. It's very straightforward, very SVU-ish, Law and Order-ish, but I still like it, man. It's good writing. Speaking of good writing, we have crossover issue 12 by Donny Cates, Jeff Shaw, and D. Kunifi. Oh, plus John J. Hill. So I do love Donny Cates' writing. His is always big and mind-blowing and fun. And like I used to talk with Rock and Robbie, it's like bar talk. Like, hey, what if we did this? And this is the most meta out there comic book for fans of the comic book industry. Donny Cates writing himself into the comic book, explaining, how we got to this point. But whoa, I didn't write all this kind of stuff. So very cool to see how he explains what's going on here and the interaction between Robert Kirkman and Negan from The Walking Dead, coming face to face with your creation, with your creator, wanting to kill him for the life that he created for you. And Robert Kirkman does a pretty good job of trying to explain, but Negan was still pretty pissed. So great issue of crossover, probably the best yet. Moving on over to Nocterra, we're on issue 8. This is by Scott Snyder, Tony S. Daniel, and Marcelo Maiolo. Nocterra is good, man. I want to like it more than I do. This issue felt more of like an explaining this world after the big PM and how things work and how the what's his name, the Bushwick Bill guy, how that guy enemy came to be. I mean, we've had a one shot on him already, but this issue focuses on him a little bit more as well. It's good. We learn a little bit more about the shades, this kind of overarching head shade kind of thing, and a little ray of hope in this world as well for like the light, if you will. Nocterra issue 8. It's solid. And the last one from Image, the last of the indies, I've got Loaded Bible, Blood of My Blood, Issue 1, Tim Seeley, Orlando, and Cafaro. This was kind of crazy. I like the big heaven and hell stuff, not so much digging this. This is kind of like this weird future of this clone of Jesus Christ fighting vampires. Like, it sounds like a cool premise and everything, but it's like, it also is exactly what you think it's going to be, and I probably won't pick up issue 2, but yeah, if you're into that. All right, guys, let's move on over to Marvel Comics with some Amazing Spider-Man issue 91. This is by Thompson, Pincelli, Gallant, and Reber. What Lurks Behind Door Z. So this is basically a Peter Parker, Ben Reilly team up against Beyond Corporation villains. Wasn't really digging it. This Behind Door Z, I don't really want to spoil it, but it's essentially setting up the villain who's a familiar villain for the next arc or whatever. I'm ready for the next thing to come. This is probably going to end the Amazing Spider-Man Beyond stuff, I would think. And then we're getting into the John Romita Jr. David Wells run, I think. Moving on over to Moon Knight, issue 9. This is by McKay, Capuccio, and Rosenberg. This is what I love about these series, this series. These little one-off stories that aren't necessarily telling this bigger story, but Moon Knight encountering this kind of supernatural floor of a building, the 6th floor that shouldn't be there in a 5th floor building. And kind of how important that being ends up being towards the end, which I don't want to spoil because it's pretty important, but great issue of Moon Knight. These are the issues that I'm really digging out of this series. Moving on over to X-Men, we have issue 9 by Jerry Dugan, Villa, and Gracia, giving us the X-Men story that we wanted to read. This is the conclusion of, or what it seems like, of what Hickman was building towards. As you see with Nimrod on the cover, with Destiny, tying it into the MODOK stuff, which was pretty cool from the prior issue. This X-Men run has been pretty solid, although this is issue 9. It doesn't feel like anything like the first arc. It feels completely different. It feels like Inferno, like Hoxpox, whereas the way that this new X-Men book started was X-Men back in New York City in the treehouse, but Devil's Reign has put a little bit of a wrench into that, which we'll get into. But before we do, we have Daredevil, Woman Without Fear, issue 3, Zdarsky, D. Latourie, and Blee. This is basically an Elektra vs. Kraven issue. It's pretty good. It plays out how you think it would, and it really ties into something that has been teased about the Punisher that people were all up in arms about. So this is gonna get us there, and we'll see what happens with that version of Punisher and what's going on with the whole hand and all that. So, you know, it was a pretty decent issue. I'm for it. I'm going to check out that Punisher series. Moving on to She-Hulk, we're on issue 2 now, and this is by Rainbow Rowell, Roge, Antonio, and Rico Renzi. So this was basically a Jack of Hearts issue, this character that was dead and has come back to life somehow. And She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, is dealing with him. He sought her out. Not familiar with the character. Didn't really care. The dialogue is surprisingly refreshing, and I like the story anyway. And I like this Jennifer Walters. I like this take on her. I like how she's kind of camped up in Janet Van Dyne's penthouse, chock full of food and everything. So I'm digging it. I'm going to keep it going, although this issue wasn't that exciting. But I'll tell you what was exciting. Strange #1. This is by McKay, Ferreira, Ho, Poggi, Tartaglia, and Sobrero. This is all about Clea, the widow of Doctor Strange, taking on the mantle of the Sorcerer Supreme and showing that she deserves it and that she's earned it, and she's got a little plan to try to get her husband back from the dead. Love how confident she is here against Doctor Doom. Great issue. You should pick it up, especially if you read Death of Doctor Strange. Then we have What If Miles Morales Became Captain America. This one's by Ziegler, Medina, Wong, and Sotomayor. So I love What Ifs. I read this because I got like a really early copy and I had some time. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have picked it up. It's exactly what you would have thought it was. What if Miles became Captain America? What if his uncle, instead of the Prowler getting him bitten by a radioactive spider, was involved with the Super Soldier serum and the Super Soldier program? It was no big deal. Then we have a couple Devil's Reign tie-ins. So here's the thing. Devil's Reign Spider-Man, issue 1 by Piper, Carlos, and Arsene Yeager, is a Rose issue, the son of Wilson Fisk, and a Ben Reilly Spider-Man story. But the problem is, there's a huge spoiler in this issue that gets revealed in Devil's Reign 5, which comes out next week. So I would say don't even read that Spider-Man one because you're going to get spoiled. And then they have Devil's Reign X-Men issue 2. This is by Jerry Dugan and Phil Noto. I love the cover, and it's very much in that era. This is a Emma Frost story from the 80s when Spider-Man had the black suit, involving She-Hulk, other characters on the front here, and just trying to get her absolved of a murder. She was implicated in some murder of a missing girl or something, so she has to get out of it. Not necessary for Devil's Reign. Moving on over to Black Panther 4. This is by Ridley, Cabal, Mustafa, and Milla. I really dug this issue, and I'm loving this series so far. I love seeing T'Challa's interaction with Storm, and this whole kind of sleeper agent story that John Ridley has crafted is really interesting, and how loyalties are tested, and people who are undercover and how much they're telling who they've been with for so long, because this Wakanda plan project has been going on for years and years. These sleeper agents have created entire lives. So pretty cool stuff. I'm digging it. And the last one for Marvel is Alien issue 10. Philip Kennedy Johnson, Salvador La Roca, and Guru EFX. We're just on this colony on this planet, and the aliens are running amok. It's playing out like an alien movie. It's playing out even with the betraying droids that are riding with them. It just feels authentic, and I'm there for it. I'm digging it. I like this series. And then moving over to DC Comics, we have Detective Comics issue 1055 by Tamaki, Nahulpin, and Belair. Has a backup story, House of Gotham, as well, by Rosenberg, Blanco, and Belair. A Cold Day in Hell. So, like I said, I haven't been digging this arc of Detective. It's coming out every week. It's not interesting. I was super bored in this issue until Mr. Freeze showed up. When Mr. Freeze showed up, it got kind of badass. Then the backup story I've been enjoying the whole time as well, just following the tale of this kid growing up in Gotham and going through the system, if you will. So that's super interesting, and seeing like the Gotham perspective from just a regular person, a kid growing up there. It's pretty cool. Sticking with Batman, we have the Batman Ongoing 121 by Williamson, Molina, Janin, and Mori. So the art is great here. I love Jorge Molina. The story feels like a Detective Comics story. It's not really hitting. We just recently got announced that Chip Zdarsky is going to be taking on, I guess, the writing duties for Batman. So I'm super excited for that. I think he's going to do a phenomenal job. This story with Batman Incorporated, I'm not really digging anything Batman Incorporated. In this one with the whole Abyss character, little twists and turns, it was okay. This one does have a backup story that I've been passing on, this Gotham Academy adventure by, who's that? Kershaw and McCraig. I've been passing on that one. Moving on, we have the War for Earth 3, issue 1 of 2. This is a 2-issue series by Thompson. Dennis Hopeless, who I mentioned before, who wasn't part of that book. Pug, Soy, Peoples, and Herms. So the thing is, I dropped Suicide Squad, and this is very much directly out of those pages, but it ties in with other things as well. I mean, War for Earth 3 was teased at the end of Task Force Z. And I do kind of like this Amanda Waller trying to team up with the crime syndicate from Earth 3. The Ultraman stuff, the banter between those evil versions of the heroes is always super funny and entertaining. So I do like this. This issue was great, man. The only thing is it's tying into like Suicide Squad 12 and 13, which I don't plan on picking up. So I don't know. Maybe I'll just grab the second issue of this 2-part miniseries and see if I can make sense of it. But I really did like issue 1. Moving on over to another new Batman title. This is a variant, but it's Batman Killing Time by Tom King, Marquez, and Sanchez. So this takes place early on in Batman's career, and it just is showing us like this look at these early Batman rogues, Killer Croc, Riddler, Catwoman, all of them kind of pulling capers at the same time. It almost seems like, Tom King. He's going to do everything on these different timelines. It feels like the same era, though, but we're just kind of seeing what's going on with these characters. There was some type of heist in a bank vault. We don't know what was stolen. Somehow Batman knew what vault was hit, which is like the hook. It's not really a spoiler because there's no context. But anyway, it was kind of lackluster, but I'm down to see what Tom King does. Just like Tom Taylor here. Dark Knights of Steel, issue 5 of 12. He's joined by Putri and Prianto. I was going to give it pick of the week. I like this Elseworlds Game of Thrones tale of our heroes and the kind of families that Tom Taylor is crafting, the betrayals, the different twists on reality, on what happens with Martha and Jonathan Kent, and instead of picking up a Clark Kent Kal-El baby, they adopt something else that falls from the sky. So kind of little differences in this Elseworlds tale. Really digging it. The interaction between Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn and how that differs from regular continuity, but some things stay the same. Great series, man. Definitely pick it up. Just like my pick of the week, it's back after a 6-month hiatus. Has it been that long? A Nice House on the Lake, issue number 7 by James Tynion IV, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, and Jordi Belair. Maybe it came back early. I don't know. It's the most interesting comic book on the shelves easily. It wasn't that action-packed. It wasn't that much of a revealing issue as I would have liked. But if I think about what I had the most fun reading the whole week, that was definitely it. Playing with the idea that they can request anything and have it brought to them. Like, what if they requested something much, much larger, something functional? That's being played with here. Walter's secret friend that's not staying with the rest of the house, and learning a little bit more about that, and how Walter had kind of some sick motivations for bringing the people there together. And as usual, we get a little glimpse of what Walter may be, still not really knowing. Still a lot of mystery behind this story that has been so intriguing and so unique. I'm really digging it. It's my pick of the week. That rhymes, and I didn't mean it to. I appreciate you guys watching. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite comic was this week or what you're most looking forward to. And stay minty fresh. Peace.